Is Mason McTavish staying? Is Mason McTavish going? What is happening to Mason McTavish? Well, let's break it all down on this episode of Locked On Anaheim Ducks.
You're Locked On Ducks, your daily podcast on the Anaheim Ducks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome, everydayers. Thank you for making Locked On Anaheim Ducks your first listen every day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name is Kjer. I'm a lifelong Anaheim Ducks fan, and I've spent multiple years covering collegiate sports, including college hockey. But as always on Locked On Ducks, we're talking about the Anaheim Ducks. And it's the off season, so make sure you grab your favorite beverage, sit back, crack one open, and enjoy the conversation. Today, we are going to be getting into Mason McTavish and what his salary is going to look like. We're going to compare kind of what his seasons have looked like and how his career's been going, and just kind of talk about the rumblings and all of the shenanigans that's been going on all over the internet in regards to Mason McTavish. So pretty much just a Mac T loaded episode today, getting into the weeds of where I think Mason McTavish is going to go and where all signs are kind of pointing at this moment. So the offseason is definitely in full swing. And basically since the draft, and the opening of free agency, it's been quiet around Anaheim. Not a lot of news, just some memorial videos here and there. By memorial, I mean like just some nostalgia videos or videos from development camp. News-wise, though, not a whole lot. Couple giveaways. That's pretty much it. So the only thing that's really been popping off, though, and it's nothing from necessarily Anaheim's side of things, but the insiders, Frank Saravelli, some other random Canadian podcast hosts out there, and just random pundits talking about Mason McTavish and basically saying that he is unhappy being in Anaheim, that he's upset with the role that he's in, that he wants to be pretty much a solid top six center. And people are trying to make up this storyline that now he doesn't feel like he's going to be in the role that he's supposed to be in, and that the recent moves have upset him, and he might be looking for an out. But to be honest, that's just not how things look out here in Anaheim. The moves that Pat Verbeek has made, with Zegras getting moved out and bringing Pelling in, who's a bottom center type player, more of a fourth line guy. The two free agents that were signed are wingers. There's no sign to me that Pat Verbeek is trying to reduce Mason McTavish's role. The way that he was playing towards the end of the season, he is establishing himself as a solid 2C or second line center, or even just a top center. It's going to be hard, obviously, to usurp Leo Carlsson, and especially like just the way that Carlsson plays and his role on the team and just kind of how they're building around him. He's going to be the 1C for a while there, but Mason McTavish is slotted in the 2C spot. And if you look at the projected lineups right now, he's going to be playing with Granlund and Kreider. So Chris Kreider, Mikael Granlund, those two being on the wing with him, that's telling me that Verbeek really wants to build up McTavish and have him be a prominent role on this team. And if you look at the pipeline for the Ducks, there's like no one that is able to come and slot themselves into that second line center position at this time. They're all still in development. They're all still at a place where they need to work. The only way that Verbeek would be able to go out and get a 2C is to go and trade and try to finagle something with someone else But if these rumors around McTavish are to be believed, and clearly they paint a picture that teams are struggling trying to find a second line center that's that's built like McTavish, that plays like McTavish, that's just a solid physical body and can provide a lot of points for the team and is great on the forecheck, great 200-foot, comes back on the back check. There's a lot of great things about McTavish's game, and finding a second line center like him is very, very difficult right now out in the NHL. And that's why there are so many teams interested in the types or in the likes of Mason McTavish. So when it comes to the Ducks not really wanting to work something out with McTavish, that's absolutely not the case. With McTavish feeling like the team is diminishing his role, I don't really see that as the case either. I saw some tweet, someone was saying, well, the Ducks just drafted a center with Roger McQueen, so McTavish feels like his role's diminishing. Roger McQueen isn't going to be NHL ready for at least 2 or 3 seasons. And that was clearly stated by Pat Verbeek. They said he came out saying, we have all the time in the world to develop Roger McQueen, and they're going to take their time. They're not going to rush him in. They want to make sure that his back is good, that he gets the play time this year that he missed from last year, and then can work his way up into the NHL. So to say that uh, Roger McQueen is coming here to replace Mason McTavish, that's absolutely nonsense. And like I said, the moves that Verbeek has made within the trades and within free agency, it all points to things building around Mason McTavish as being a staple of this team. One of the few homegrown centers that's still on the team. There was a big issue with Zegras playing on the wing. Not that it was an issue like causing bad play or they were butting heads or anything. It was that Zegras, yes, he was providing good offense when he was with McTavish, but Zegras was wanting to play center as that was his main role growing up, and that's just what he knows. He wants to play center, but the Ducks just didn't really have a place to put him because they had Leo Carlsson as the first line center and Mason McTavish as the second line center. And they're going to be having Ryan Strome kind of step down. Still, it's up in the air on whether or not he's going to be part of this team by the time the year starts. It looks like all signs are pointing to him still being here, but more in a diminished role than being up there on the top. And then to have Mikael Granlund and Chris Kreider on the wings for Mason McTavish, it just shows that Verbeek is trying to build something around him. The only thing that could come in between Mason McTavish and Anaheim not being together by the start of the season is the offer sheet game. But I think Verbeek is going to be fairly aggressive with any type of offer sheet that comes and matching it because of how rare and in desperate need a lot of teams are with McTavish. And then if anything, and he is still upset, and it really does come to fruition that McTavish is not happy with his role or his time in Anaheim, then once he's on a good, solid contract and he can play and prove himself, then he becomes more of a trade piece, and the Ducks nor McTavish lose out on anything in that sense. So to really look at where we're going, got to look at where we've been and where Mason McTavish has been and where the Ducks have been with him. So we're going to get into kind of what he's brought to the team and how things have looked for him career-wise and just how that can lead into a contract point after the break. Summer sports are in full swing, and whether you're all about baseball under the lights, golf on the green, or high-stakes soccer action, FanDuel is the best way to make every game even more exciting. You're already following the action. Why not make it a little more thrilling? With FanDuel, you can get in on the game while your friends are getting sunburned at the beach. They just had the Club World Cup for soccer. My club, Chelsea, came out with the victory. And FanDuel hooked it up. Got to put that bet on. So make sure you get onto FanDuel. And if you're new to FanDuel, new customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Open the FanDuel app today or visit fanduel.com to get started. So looking at McTavish and how he's done and where he's going, he should absolutely be cracking the 30-goal mark this season and 60 points at least this next season with the Ducks. McTavish's previous contract, trying to figure out the numbers of where he's going, he was at $894,000, just over. So $894, $167 for 3 years. So pretty much a little bump of a early entry-level contract. And as of now, his UFA status will be in 2029. So that is where Verbeek is looking at when it comes to a target date. We'll get into that more, but just to kind of understand how the bridge would work, Verbeek is looking at it as, let me get this player. He does it with all of his contracts so far, and that's just the way he talks about it, is let me get a contract situated for the player up until that UFA year, which would be 2029. So that's a 3-year and a 4-year deal, give or take. So that's what he's trying to look at when it comes to the bridge. But looking at McTavish in his career, he has played 229 games. He has 60 goals, 80 assists, and a total of 140 points. In his first season in the league, it was 21-22. So couple years ago, he only played 9 games, but had a couple points while he was up. Then the next season was his longest season that he's played so far, 80 games. That was 2022-2023 season. That year he racked up 17 goals, 26 assists, a total of 43 points. Then in 23-24, he played 64 games, had 19 goals, 23 assists, and 42 points. So went down 1 point, but only played 64 games compared to 80. So more points per average that year than the previous season. Then last season, that was his biggest season yet in regards to points, goals, assists, everything. All career numbers for Mason McTavish last year. 76 games. So still not his longest season, but 76 games. He had 22 goals, 30 assists, and 52 points, setting career highs in all areas. So if his current trend continues, he should definitely be cracking 30 goals. At minimum, I see Mason getting 25 goals this year, especially if he is lined up with Chris Kreider and Mikael Granlund. He is going to be racking in the points, no problem, no questions asked. I could see it being a little lower in the goal count just because he does have those 2 guys that are pretty good at picking up the trash and helping assist, or he would be more assisting them as the wingers. But 60 points seems absolutely easy for Mason this year. I think 60 points is the bar, and I hope to see him set it higher than that, but that is where I'm picturing Mason's season next year, especially with that lineup. Even with the other players in there, if they bounce things around, obviously camp is going to determine a lot of things with the new coaching staff and everything. And that's something I didn't even mention in the first segment when it comes to these rumors of McTavish being upset and not liking where things are going or where things are going to be for him on the team. They just got a whole new coaching staff that all have success under their belts with Coach Quinville, Jay Woodcroft, and all those other guys. I do not have their names in front of me, and off the top of my head, I cannot think about it right now. But they all have success in their roles and where they are going to be coaching Anaheim. So to say that he's upset and doesn't see where the Ducks are going, that the proof is in the pudding that the Ducks are really trying to make a competitive team and make it competitive in the near future. So I don't see why he would want to move on from where the Ducks are right now. And he's going to be getting the role that he wants. It just doesn't make any sense. I talked about it before that he's currently lined up with Mikael Granlund and Chris Kreider. That is according to Daily Faceoff. And there's nothing obviously written in stone, but that's their predicted line for Mason right now. Those two players will definitely help get him going. So he's going to just be moving up and up and up. Last season, Mason McTavish was the best face-off man on the team, just shy of 50% in the dot. So bringing in this new coaching staff, bringing in all these new players, you know that he's going to be working on that and that he's going to improve his face-off percentage. He's going to improve his face-off takes. Like everything about that is going to be improving for him. So if he can get above 50%, that's more offense that his line will have, and that just leads to more scoring as well. It doesn't really make sense to me to see Mason McTavish not being in an Anaheim Ducks sweater next year. All signs are pointing to yes, that he will be an Anaheim Duck. Yes, the contract, it's not signed yet. It's taking a while, if you want to say a while, as other contracts have been figured out across the league. Being a restricted free agent, he received a qualifying offer, so at least he didn't get shot out into the wind. He hasn't filed for salary arbitration, and the Ducks didn't file for salary arbitration. So at least there's conversations going there. Doesn't sound like either team's upset with where that's going. However, that does leave him open for offer sheets from other teams. So he's not protected from being offer sheeted, and that could be trouble for Verbeek. And the way the offer sheets work, though, and will be a big, I feel, determinant towards where things are going, is teams can offer sheet a player, but the player has to accept that offer sheet. And then that's when it will go to the Ducks, and then they have to either match or figure out what's going to go on with the offer sheet. And usually with an offer sheet, they'll offer to the team a couple drafts to get the player, or a couple draft picks. It's almost like a trade, but it's a little wonky, a little bit more paperwork type stuff. But the player first has to accept that offer sheet from the team. So if at this point, Mason McTavish could have been offer sheeted by a team, we just wouldn't know it if he didn't accept the offer from those teams. And that would say that he would want to be here. But I in no way know if that has occurred. I would love to have Mason McTavish on speed dial right now, but I do not. I'm still working on the DMs. You know what I'm saying? But there's a lot behind the scenes that's going on. It sounds like Pat Verbeek is being pretty patient, and he's not trying to rush anything, and he's taking the negotiations as smooth as possible and working with Mason's camp. Hopefully there's some kind of news soon. Hopefully it comes out. But in the grand scheme of things, there's so much time left that I'm not overly panicking or freaking out. There's the deadline for RFAs is beyond the opening season. I believe it's sometime in December, and they have all this time. The only worry I have is that if a contract isn't worked out and they haven't come to an agreement, and the team gets into training camp and Mason McTavish is not out there for training camp or the preseason or even the start of the season, like we saw with Trevor Zegras a couple years ago, that is a little terrifying to me. That's a little scary because that just sets him off behind the bar. He cannot practice with the team per the rules. So I obviously want to have something done before that, but there's still a couple of months left until then. So nothing is quite panic mode yet. There's the rumblings, there's all the extra stuff going on, but from my perspective and from what most of the people I've talked to in Anaheim are saying, that there is not a need for concern. This is just other people from other areas basically just trying to start something to talk about. Now that Zegras and Gibson are gone, the next guy on the dartboard is Mason McTavish. So try to calm down, try to relax when it comes to him, and don't freak out yet. Keep your eye out, obviously, for news, but as of now, I'm in the boat that it's working out. And in the boat of working out, what is that contract going to look like for Mason McTavish? What's going to be the term? What's going to be the annual average value for it? What's the AAV? Like what are we looking at? And I'll tell you after the break why I think just around $7 million might be that target point. You just realized your business needed to hire someone yesterday. How can you find amazing candidates fast? Easy. Just use Indeed. When it comes to hiring, Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your job posts seen on other sites. Indeed sponsored jobs put your posts at the top of the page and help you reach the right candidates faster. With Indeed, if there's any type of work that you need, especially when you're in the business of film and video and editing, go to Indeed. You post your job there for an editor. You're going to get the proper kind of editor, not a newspaper editor, but a video editor or whatever it is that you're looking for on Indeed. It's the place to put it, and you're going to get someone fast. So now you can speed up your hiring process with a $75 sponsored job credit. Just go to Indeed.com/locked on right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring? Indeed is all you need. As negotiations continue between Verbeek and McTavish's camp, and rumors are flying about offer sheets, everything's going on. What is a realistic number that could lock McTavish in to a Anaheim Ducks sweater next season? Well, with the cap going up, there's a lot of murky ground on what contracts should look like, because soon a guy that's getting paid $6 million now will be $8 million in the next couple of years. Or you could say an $8 million player will be the same as a $6 million player now. So it's going to look bigger and it's going to look higher. And you're going to look at the board and be like, well, you got Jack Hughes over here making that much money. Why is this second line guy, not a main superstar, making this much? It's all because of the cap changing and inflation and just, wonderful economy stuff. So it's going to be interesting to look at. And that's kind of where Verbeek is coming from as well. Verbeek's looking at it, and I know you could say whatever you want about Pat Verbeek, but he was a player and he knows how these things are. He's been through it all. His main focus is to take care of the players and try to give them the best advantage in their career as possible and make the most out of their career as possible. But with that cap space going up and with everything that's happening around the team and the type of role McTavish is going to be serving for the Ducks, I see McTavish being able to get that Brinks truck backing up. Beep, beep, beep. Come on down, baby. Bring that truck over, because McTavish has a really, really good time to figure out a good contract. And looking at how desperate teams are for a second line center, this guy has a great opportunity right now to come in at a decent number and make himself some big bucks in a couple of years, depending on the term. That's where things are a little weird, because players do like to have that insurance of longevity of their career. They don't know what's going to happen in a couple of years, and that's why he's going to try to push for more of a like 7-year contract. That's why you see some of these guys still signing 7-year deals, 8-year deal. The 8-year deal is going to be going away next year due to the new CBA, but 7 years, like you're seeing a lot of these guys that are looking for that because they want to have that security in their job and not give up the opportunity to continue playing and risk that chance of not getting a contract in a couple of years. It's kind of like, do you bet on yourself with the short term and try to make money more, or do you go for the insurance with term now and lock in for a couple years? And yeah, the cap's going to go up and you're not going to be making as much as you could, but you're still getting money. So some comparables to players that are kind of in the same boat as Mason McTavish and especially the same peer group. You got Matty Beniers, who just got a 7-year deal for $7.14 million. Then Quinton Byfield just up the street in LA. He got 5 years at 6.25. So the thing that seems to stick out for me that can be a concern and kind of another thing that Pat Verbeek is looking at is sometimes players fizzle out. They have a good spot and then all of a sudden they're completely out of the picture. So my Ducks fans, you're definitely going to know these two names. Look at Maxime Comtois. Where's he playing these days? Look at Max Jones. Look how much he's been bouncing around and kind of falling down. So those are some guys that were promised big years and they look like they were going to have these great hockey careers, and it just doesn't translate to the NHL, or just something disappears and their game just doesn't last to keep them in that much of a hit on the cap, and then also play, like, it just becomes a disaster. So the big reason for Verbeek to do these bridge deals is not only because of that, but also due to the bridge and getting them to the UFAs, as I kind of mentioned before. So there's a couple of things that are going on in Pat Verbeek's head and where he's working. And it's not that he's trying to lowball the player. He's not trying to be rude. There isn't, like, obviously hockey's a business. It's his job to run the business. He's the general manager. He's kind of in charge. He's the gatekeeper of what the money and the cap's going to look like and everything. But there's almost a big brother type mentality, at least in Verbeek's mind, and he thinks he's doing it out of the goodness of his heart. Like, you could just tell when he talks about it that he likes to do those bridge deals so that the player gets to their UFA year, and hopefully before they get to that UFA year, they can sign an actual extension and have that player prove that they can go up and up and up. So with McTavish, like I talked about in the first segment, if he goes up to 30 goals and 60 points and he starts to maintain that in a 2 to 3 year bridge deal, then they're going to be looking to spend that much more on him. The only thing that is concerning about that, at least from the Ducks perspective, and only signing a bridge deal, is that how desperate teams are for a second line center. In 2 to 3 years, that contract's up. McTavish is a UFA, and then all of a sudden he's looking to go elsewhere, or he wants out and he can go wherever he wants. Now the Ducks are out a player that they developed to play in that role. And who knows what the center market's going to look like at that point. And who knows how the players that the Ducks have drafted are going to be developed by then. So there's a lot of gambling kind of going on in this situation with both teams. But what the contract I see for McTavish and the dealings of the wanting a bridge deal, wanting good money, wanting a good role, and really having that insurance of being part of the team, I think for both teams, the team and the camp of Mason McTavish to come to a good medium ground, I think 5 years and a $6.5 million contract. So 5 years, 6 million and a half AAV. Trying to say that in a way, and I keep getting tongue tied on it. $6.5 million for 5 years is where I see Mason McTavish landing. I think that helps the team have insurance in their second line center position. It makes Mason feel like he has the insurance and that they're actually developing the role for him and that he has a key component in this team and he gets to see how this team goes. And it's also a decent signing for someone that's going to be a top 6 forward. He can set himself up with that security, really show himself as being a top 6 forward. And if things really aren't that great with the team and all those rumblings about him not being happy are true, he's not at a price point or a contract point that teams are going to be upset about. So where do I see McTavish coming in at? I see him coming in at $6.5 million AAV for 5 years. I think that's easy enough for both teams to get behind. Obviously, that's pending at offer sheets. And if offer sheets do come in, I've heard numbers around $8 million. So we'll see how things go with everything rumbling and everything that's going. But to sum things up, McTavish is a big piece to the Ducks' plans moving forward. And although there are the rumblings out there, they don't seem to be warranted or an actual report. It's more just people talking. However, you still have to take them with a grain of salt. So you got to look at it and just expect the unexpected. And obviously with the Zegras trade and the Gibson trades, we've seen that Verbeek kind of just will do something out of nowhere. And they're a silent, loose lips, sink ships, don't talk about it type camp. So don't expect a lot coming out before the actual news breaks. But I think that that would be a very team-friendly deal and a player-friendly deal. I think both camps can come to good settlement there, and it leaves room in the cap space for the next group of RFAs, which the Ducks have a lot of next year. So pretty much to sum it up even more, McTavish is good for the Ducks and the Ducks are good for McTavish, and they're going to come to a settlement. It's going to work out, and he's going to be in a Duck sweater starting in October. So that's what is going on with Mason McTavish. If you have any questions or you have your own idea of what's going to happen, send me a note at cartalksports.com/connect. That's KJER talksports.com/connect, or leave some comments on the YouTube. Hit me up on social media. Let me know what's going on in your mind with Mason McTavish. And as always, thank you for making Locked On Anaheim Ducks your first listen today. For your second listen, check out the Locked On NHL podcast. There is no offseason, bringing you the daily league-wide stories that matter most with the local coverage you love from Locked On. Find Locked On NHL on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Go like and subscribe to the podcast and on YouTube for me as well. And as always, I'm Kyle Carr. Be good out there.